You're listening to The Alien Observer. I'm David McElroy. I have never felt as unhappy as I find myself feeling lately. I could list some of the reasons why, but that wouldn't really explain everything. These circumstances of my life have existed before. So why am I so frustrated and unhappy? And why do so many other people feel the same way right now? I'm not sure whether it's a reflection of the state of this society or just a state of my own mind. But I have never in my life felt as negative about the state of the world as I do right now. I feel like completely withdrawing. A lot of things feel hopeless. But I wonder whether I'm making things worse for myself, again, by focusing on the wrong things. Social media is an outrage machine. It's a sophisticated system which turns your outrage into cash for people who own companies such as Facebook and Twitter and the news media companies such as CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and the rest. You see, every time you get outraged, someone makes money. Your outrage has a market value to a lot of people. Facebook wouldn't be so crass as to admit that, or honest enough either, to be willing to put it that way, but it's the truth. It's the same for CNN and Fox and all of the others, Twitter, you name it. Did you see what everybody posted about the riots last week? Or about Donald Trump? Did you see what MSNBC said? Doesn't that infuriate you? Isn't it terrible? Aren't you angry about it? It doesn't matter what the subject is. It doesn't matter whether the news is fair or whether your friend's Facebook posts are honest and accurate. Or not. Probably not. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. All that matters is that you stay outraged, so that the companies which make our mass media and social media can keep making money. I've been frustrated with myself recently. I have experienced so much anger at the intellectual dishonesty of most people that I'm getting emotionally numb. I don't even care about the trivial issues that many of them are arguing about. But I hate people lying to support their positions. I hate people being blind to things that are obvious. And this dishonesty and blindness are rampant right now, from both the left and the right. I have to find a way to quit paying attention to it, because nothing I say can change what people are willing to post online or to believe. This outrage is dangerous to the health of our culture, what's left of it at least, and I think it's also horribly unhealthy for us as individuals. I've been hearing from more and more of my friends who want to somehow get away from the insanity of the outrage machine just as much as I do. But we have trouble pulling away from it. One of my problems is that I'm an idealist in a lot of ways. You might want to call it a perfectionist, because it's related to that too. Deep down, I believe that if I will just explain what people should see, everybody will magically see things my way. I see an ideal version of the way things could be. And it's hard for me to believe that people won't see the same things if I just explain it well enough. About 20 years ago, I took a personality test that had 3 sections. It explained how your personality operates in the realms of thinking, working, and expressing emotions. It said that I was a visionary in the thinking and working categories, and the descriptions that it gave for me for those aspects of myself were so accurate that it was a bit scary, as if they had been reading my mind. But in the emotional category, they said I was an idealist. And I reacted very strongly to that, saying that I could not possibly be an idealist. I was thinking of an idealist as someone who had his head in the clouds and thought that the world was perfect. I wrote to the company that made the test and I complained that there was something wrong with the test because it was completely wrong about me in that regard. It took me a few years, but I finally understood what they had really meant. And I saw that they had read me more accurately than I'd realized. And the test had seen something in me which I hadn't acknowledged yet to myself. You see, they meant idealist in a very different way. They meant that I had an instinctive view of the world, of a world that is ideal and perfect. And I can't bear to live with anything other than that potential perfection that I see. I've come to understand how I do this with all sorts of things. When I see what seems to be the absolute, unquestionable right way, my right way, that everything or anything ought to be, I can't be happy with anything else. Something in my gut just knows things. And unless that gut instinct changes, I'm stuck pursuing it, whether it makes sense or not. If I see the romantic relationship that is perfect for me, that is completely right in some way which is almost holy, I can't see any other woman in the world. Unless something changes to release me from that, I'm stuck pursuing this ideal whether it makes any sense or not. It's the same way with my work. When there's something that I see as the right way to do something, I will fight to do it my way, even if other people might see it as a relatively trivial thing for me to just give in and do things the way some boss or somebody else wants it done. And here's why I'm explaining all of this. I do the same thing with issues that the world around me is obsessing about. The right way to analyze things is often so clear to me that I'm certain that others will understand and see things my way if I can just figure out how to explain it well enough. And that's one of the many reasons why social media is so dangerous for me. I have a feeling that a lot of other people do the same thing. A lot of you are so sure that you are right, whether you know enough to even have an opinion or not, and you're determined to convince other people, or else explain to other people at least why they're wrong. And you are outraged that they don't want to listen to what is obviously right to you. And you know what? They feel the same way. They think that you and I are just as stupid as we think that they are. A couple of years ago, I started asking myself a simple question that's helped me a lot. When people are fighting about something, and I desperately want to show them my own one true way, I try to ask myself, can I do something about this thing? In other words, can I really make any difference in it all by myself? Let's be honest, there is almost nothing that people argue about on Facebook, or that you watch reports about on television, or that your friends post their frenzied, angry posts about, that you or I can do anything about. That's almost nothing. And if you see that you can't do anything about it, learn to move on. Turn your television off. Don't get caught up in the outrage of the moment. Don't read your friend's outraged commentary about whatever they're angry about, even if you think you're angry about the same thing. All it will do is to drag you down and waste part of your very short life. You do not have enough time in this life. None of us do. We have so much work to do just on ourselves and our relationships that we don't have the time to waste on things that we can't control. It is so easy to marinate in the emotions of outrage, but it's useless, and it wastes the precious time that you have left here in this life. And whether you realize it or not, you have nothing more important than the time which you are wasting, because that's the time you could be using to connect with people in love and peace, instead of connecting with them in anger and hatred instead. If you'll stick around after this quick break, I'll be back with more. When I launched my first podcast, I took a friend's recommendation about which hosting service to use. He told me that Anchor.fm was the only one that I ought to consider. And it turns out that he was right. I had such a great experience with the free Anchor service that I'm also using it for this second podcast too. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. And best of all, it's free. I don't know how they do it, but it's free. I record and edit my podcasts on my own MacBook, but Anchor even has tools to allow you to record straight into a web browser, or even your mobile phone if you're not ready for the challenge of doing your own recording. Anchor will handle all the distribution of your podcast too, getting it into all of the major podcast directories such as Apple, Google, and Spotify. They even have a plan by which you can run ads if you want, but you're not required to if you don't want to. Anchor has everything you need to make a podcast, all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. For the last couple of weeks, I've been thinking about something that Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount. And I've seen it in a different way than what I've seen it before. You don't have to be a religious person. You don't even have to be a Christian or not. It just doesn't matter. You might be familiar anyway, though, with Jesus saying, if your eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. Now, when I first encountered that as a child, I found it gruesome and confusing. I later had teachers explain to me that it was metaphorical language to say that if something in our lives is causing us to stumble in some way, it's better to get rid of that thing than to continue having problems. Now, most preachers and teachers interpret it strictly in light of sin, but I've been wondering if there's a much broader lesson here. Maybe we should be willing to put things out of our lives that are causing us to stumble in some way. Something that's causing us to live in ways that are not good for ourselves and others, ways that make us unhappy and unfulfilled, all the things that prevent us from being the people who we were born to become. I initially started thinking about this because of something I ran across in a book called The Gospel of Thomas. Now, this is one of the early church writings, which is not a part of our Bible. It's something that the early church fathers disagreed with, and so it was not included after a couple of hundred years in our scriptures. But in this book, there is a saying which is attributed to Jesus, in which he says, "If you do not fast from the world, you will not find the Father's kingdom." Now, a slightly different translation of that says, "If you do not abstain from the world, you will not find the kingdom." The more I thought about that, the more powerfully it seemed to apply to the world around me, and it seemed to be directly speaking to the same thing that Jesus talked about in the Sermon on the Mount, about gouging your eye out, or removing your foot if it caused you to stumble, or whatever. The outrage machine is powerful, and if we focus on that, we are blinded to the things which really matter in this world. I think we can easily interpret what this calls the kingdom of God as love and beauty and truth and all of the other things that we instinctively know in our spirits are right and good. These are the things that Jesus preached about over and over in the Gospels. Read the Sermon on the Mount carefully, and I think you'll see clearly what I'm saying. It doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or not. It doesn't matter whether you follow Jesus or not. At least insofar as understanding what I'm saying. It's clearly wisdom to see that when we allow ourselves to get drawn into the outrageous and evil things of this world, we cannot allow ourselves to focus on the good. We can't allow ourselves to live in love and peace if we are focusing on the anger and the hatred instead. If you are unhappy about life and the state of the world as I've been lately, I'd like to suggest that you have a way to change that. You can pluck things out of your life that are causing you to be unhappy and causing you to focus on negative things. And I'd like to suggest that social media and news media are among the biggest offenders on the list. And I think we have to find ways to abstain from those if we want to be happier. If we want to stop allowing other people's anger and hatred and stupidity from dragging us down to their level. I've been planning to leave Facebook and maybe other social media by the end of the year. Today I took another step toward that by stepping away temporarily from Facebook while I figure out how to leave for good. It's difficult because we have integrated so much of our personal and even business lives into these social media platforms that it's hard to just shut them off. That has to change, at least for me. If you are as frustrated with the world as I am, and if you're angry and hurt by things you can't control, consider that maybe it's time to cut some things out of your life that have you focusing in the wrong direction. You see, the rest of the world isn't going to change for you. The people who are problematic for you are not suddenly going to change. They are not suddenly going to become loving and decent. It's way past time for a lot of us to go on a fast from things which are dragging us down and making our lives worse. Isn't it worth at least trying to get rid of some of those things? Isn't it worth trying instead to focus on things of eternal value instead of focusing on the things that make you angry and the things that make you feel hatred and the things that drag you down instead? The Alien Observer is written and produced by me, David McElroy. If you'd like to get in touch, send me an email at davidmcelroy@mac.com. That's davidmcelroy@mac.com. Or go to anchor.fm/thealienobserver to record a voice response. Anything you send might end up on a future episode. There's also a donation link on that page if you'd like to support the show. For more about me and what I've written in the past, including thousands of articles over the last 10 years, go to davidmcelroy.org. The Alien Observer is copyright 2020 by David McElroy. All rights are reserved on the planet Earth, but rights are still pending on the planets where the rest of the aliens live. Theme music is The Boy and the Kite by Solitude and is licensed courtesy of Soundstripe. The birds and crickets from the opening was recorded live in my own backyard. Please join me again next time for more observations about this strangely alien world that's all around us.